get ready with me as we talk about being a woman, beauty, aging, and weight. So it's probably been a month and a half since I started to be more online, and it is very interesting how many comments and how much of the dialogue is actually about the outer looks rather than what you're talking about. So I'm a 42-year-old woman. I feel really good about myself. I feel really good, honestly. I've tried with all my might to just sort of stay focused on what matters and what doesn't matter, and realize that beauty standards are pretty wild in general, and there's so many options. So a few things I want to talk about are, for me, I just have stuck to clinical skincare. I haven't done any outer stuff, Botox, fillers, lasers, things like that. I just haven't done them. Doesn't mean I won't do them. I just haven't done them. So that is one thing that I think is interesting discussion. I like that people are more honest about it. But to be honest, I have been in the sun my whole life. I'm always outside. I try to take good care of myself. But I have had a lot of wild adventures, and certain periods in my life I've had really great habits, and others I haven't. And I have a job that is not easy on the skin, so I'm just going to start with the baseline there. And I have found, to be honest, at 42, my skin is probably better than it ever was my entire life. I had acne when I was a teenager, and it was troublesome. It was really, really a tricky, challenging thing. And I was really fortunate. My mom and dad really helped me try to get it underway. I ended up going on Accutane when I was probably 18 or 19. And I do think that it did have some help. I know that is a very controversial drug, but it did help. And I have to say, it really, really embedded in me a gratitude for when my skin is clear and healthy. And I don't know how it works with acne and wrinkles, but maybe there's something to that. Some people have told me that before. Okay, so that's the one layer about skincare. And I think you just, as you age, you learn how to take better care of your skin and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I also think now, more than ever, we have access to so many great products, so many great resources, and people being really honest about what skincare works for them and what doesn't. So that's my blurb about skin. Hair is very interesting. As you can see, I have a lot of gray. I am 42. I probably started getting gray around 27, so quite young. I guess it's genetic. My mom's mom was gray at a very young age. And I oftentimes get comments on my hair because I've been jet black, I have been platinum blonde, and I think that's very interesting. For me, as I've aged, it's easier to be lighter because my hair grows quite quickly, and it's sort of, I could totally just go fully gray, but I'm just not ready for that. I just don't want to do that yet, so I don't. And what I do is I do a roots of like a brown mixture, ash blonde brown, that I actually do myself, and then I just get highlights done. I'm sure there's a different, better way, but it's just what's worked for me, and I do that every 6 to 8 weeks. It's a little too often, and it causes a lot of damage. Anytime you put bleach in your hair, it causes a lot of damage. But I like it, and I don't feel like being dark again. And to be honest, I think dark can be trickier with white gray hairs, especially just the maintenance, and you get that defined line if you have a lot of white hair. So that's the scoop on the hair. I was basically brunette. I'm a brunette naturally till about 13, and then I started doing highlights. And if you've had highlights, you know how it works. Over time, it just becomes blonder and blonder. So then I guess 14 to 19, 14 to 18, I was blonde. And then 19 to 34 during COVID is when I then just started to go lighter again. And here we are. So that's the scoop on the hair. And now let's talk about weight, because weight is very, very interesting, especially on the internet. And I am such an advocate of you do you, what works for you, different seasons of your lives. I don't think there is one template for anybody. I think everybody's body's different, everybody's hormones are different, everybody's season of life is different. And my personal experience, I've been all sorts of weights. I'm 5'3", maybe 5'4" on a good day. And I can basically, if I stop exercising or walking and start eating more processed foods and not sleeping enough, I just don't feel as well. I become more inflamed, and I probably easily put on weight, and it's usually in the same places. And it's not rocket science. My body actually is like very over my entire life. So the last 30 years when I really ever was thinking about it, it was usually the same thing. If I just, like so many of us, if I stop moving and start eating junk, it usually doesn't work for me. And more importantly, it affects my mental. I do not feel well if I'm not really just like moving my body and eating whole foods. Everybody's journey is different with how they want to feel and what makes them feel beautiful, and biologically we're all different. I do have some things. I remember in grade school I was by no means fat, but I had a little tummy as a girl, and I do have vivid memories of this boy telling me and kind of poking fun at me about my tummy, which is very interesting. I don't have children, but it really does make me think about, gosh, we're just so impressionable when we're little, and we pay attention to everything. And I think so many of us, I grew up in Southern California in a bathing suit, so I think it was actually good, and maybe it had its pros and cons. And growing up in a place where there was an emphasis on beauty and looks and youth, and now I think that's transcended everywhere. I think you always think about it. But to conclude, here I am at 42, and it doesn't really matter your age. I think it's truly a matter of energy. And I have seen beautiful women all over the world, all different ages, sexy women all over the world, all different ages. And it's you can really have the outer all together, but if the inner isn't shining and confident, and it doesn't really matter. Sure, maybe for a minute, but the most engaging, my description of beauty is these people that are just sort of have accepted the way they look and are going with it. And I find that to be in the south of France. I like that's why I'm always drawn and want to live in the south of France, is I find the women there to really be like very sensual and beautiful at all ages. I don't know if it's a French thing, but I have found that to be very true. Please list any other places where you have found that to be true. I'm going to try this eye stuff. This is always the hardest part with these videos, is doing the eyes. Okay, here we go. Okay. And I think there is a way to age, take care of yourself, do the best you can, but also keep that sacred sensuality. That's not everybody's jam, but I am I'm very much into that. As a woman, I like that femininity. I like that feeling that we have as women. So any thoughts, any dialogue, I would love to hear from you. I think it's interesting putting yourself out there online, because clearly a lot of us have things to say with our words, but we are just physically expressing it. And so I think it would be silly not to recognize that a lot of people just look at looks and that's it, or they want to know about our outfits or our makeup or whatever. Okay, so just remember, it's an inside job. Mwah.